The Bay, it's the sheriff versus Sharpton tonight in Pinellas County. Sheriff Bob Gualtieri responding to Al Sharpton's demand that he arrest the shooter in a controversial stand your ground case or give up his badge. The sheriff says he's doing exactly what the law requires him to do, and today he told Sharpton to get out of town. Evan Axelmakes live at the Pinellas County Justice Center with this part of the story. Evan.
Well, Mark, the more attention that this case has gotten, the more emotional the back and forth has gotten, and now there are questions about what impact the war of words could have.
Sheriff Bob Gualtieri almost held back.
I don't have any comment on that. You know, it's a bunch of rhetoric, so I'm not, I didn't pay much attention to it, to tell you the truth.
But he couldn't.
I went there and don't really care what Al Sharpton has to say. Go back to New York, mind your own business.
Sunday saw Al Sharpton join with the parents of Trayvon Martin, civil rights attorneys, and 5 Democratic candidates for governor to demand Gualtieri arrest Michael Draka for shooting Marquise McLaughlin. Gualtieri says he would have, if not for the stand your ground law. To the suggestion Sharpton go back to New York, his camp told the Tampa Bay Times on Monday that Gualtieri's comments are like those of sheriffs out of the 1960s that called civil rights leaders invited by victims outside agitators.
This case should not be tried in the parking lot of a convenience store or a gas station. It should be tried in a courtroom.
Sharpton promises to keep coming back to Clearwater until charges are filed, which is now up to the state attorney. Will public attention make a difference?
When a prosecutor looks at this case, they're not looking at it whether or not we can be popular, whether or not this is a popular decision. It's whether or not they can prove this charge.
Lawyer and legal analyst Anthony Rickman argues prosecutors would need to believe they could prove clearly and convincingly this is not a case where stand your ground would apply. Rickman says that's an even higher burden than the sheriff has already said he couldn't meet to charge Draka.
They're going to review it, they're going to take their time, and they're going to base their decision on the facts, the evidence, the video, and more importantly, the law.
And on Sunday, Al Sharpton argued that charges would not have been filed against George Zimmerman in the Trayvon Martin situation without public pressure. And remember, that took 6 weeks to happen. He was, of course, found not guilty. And coming up at 11 o'clock, Mark, we're going to tell you all about a poll that's going around the state legislature right now on whether there should be a special session convened in Tallahassee to look again at Stand Your Ground.
I know this is one of those cases that got everybody's attention for sure, for good reason. So we'll see how it shakes out, Evan. Thanks very much. Meantime.
So, Peterson, I would say, had all the tools, had received the training, and that was a situation where no matter what you did, what you gave that guy, he's just a coward that wasn't going to act. And so it didn't matter what you gave him. So in Peterson's case, it wasn't a matter of whether he received the training. Now, if you do certain things, could somebody have, seen that If he was required to react in other settings, that's a crystal ball I don't have and that nobody has. He was an SRO for 28 years.
Right.
So, and a good chunk of the last, whatever, 10 years was at Stoneman Douglas, where, quote, nothing ever happens. So, is that a contributing factor? Again, I don't have a crystal ball. I can't predict that.
One of your charges is to find if failures of policy, procedure, or execution contributed to death or injury. That's from the statute.
Right.
Do you see Sheriff's Office failures of policy, procedure, and execution? We just talked about execution. But looking at the Sheriff's Office as a whole, do you see those failures?
You know, no, there's nothing I can point to. There's a number of contributing factors, but anything that is solely on the sheriff's office, no. The answer to that, I can't, as I sit here, give you any specifics of that. I think that there are some things that the sheriff's office did or didn't do, that Coral Springs did or didn't do, that the school district did or didn't do. I think there's a number of things by a number of different entities that contributed to it. And you know, you asked about the Broward Sheriff's Office, but I'll give you an example. That the lack of mandated hard corners in the classrooms, that contributed to it. The fact that politics largely drove the setup of the 911 system in Broward County contributed to it. The fact that the Coral Springs Police Department got all of those calls and sat on them for over 4 minutes. And at that point, Cruz was already done shooting and killing before they even dispatched one of their first officers because of the way the system was set up. Did that contribute to a delayed law enforcement response? Yes, it did. So there's a whole number of things.
Do you see misfeasance, incompetence, and neglect of duty in Sheriff Israel?
No, I don't. No, I don't.
So if it were up to you, and it's not, but if it were up to you to recommend to the governor whether he should be removed from office, you don't see a cause for that?
No, I don't.
He should keep his job.
Well, that's up to the voters of Broward County. Eventually. But as far as do I see anything there that rises to the level of misfeasance, malfeasance, etc.? No, I don't see that at all.
He famously said that he's demonstrated amazing leadership as sheriff, and that in that CNN interview. Would you call it amazing leadership?
Well, I guess I'll leave that self-characterization to him and to others to opine on. I'll say this is that like with anything, there's definitely room for improvement. I think we all have room for improvement. There are things there that day that we'll point out that in the command and control that probably should have been done differently and could have been done differently by a host of people. But with everything we learn from them, and one of the things that is a given about those types of incidents, it is absolute chaos. Question is how much of it is going to be organized chaos. So there are some things that certainly everybody can learn from, but I don't see anything that rises to that level or even really close to that level. And so that has caused me to change, because originally I thought it was of the opinion that law enforcement had a fighting chance at mitigating the harm of these when they occurred, and that law enforcement was best positioned to mitigate it. And now I think not so much for a whole bunch of reasons. Because seconds matter. Yeah. And cops, just like on the outside, when I say the outside, I'm talking about the outside of schools, but just like on the outside, cops can't be everywhere all the time. There's not enough of us, and we can't be everywhere fast enough. So that is that is something that in my view has changed now.
And as a result of that, your belief on the Guardian program?
Right. So I think the Guardian program is spot on. I actually think that there should be more flexibility to it, and it should be expanded to allow more of the right people. And this is something that gets frustrating for me, is people misstate what I say. It's just kind of the way it is in life, and especially with headlines and sound bites, right. And so I'll be clear. Let's see what happens this time, but I'll be clear with this: is that I'm not advocating for let's arm teachers. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying though is that we need to give some serious thought and some serious consideration to expanding the scope of it to allow more of the right people who volunteer, who have the right mindset, who go through a rigorous selection process, go through a rigorous training process, that are held to the right standards, that are in a position then to defend themselves, defend their colleagues, and defend the students, and that they can take appropriate action, because one or two or three in a campus the size of Stoneman Douglas, with 3,500 people on a campus on any given day, with 16 buildings and 45 acres, it ain't going to be enough.
But right now the law allows that for administrators, for junior ROTC instructors, for former law enforcement, for former military.
Right.
It doesn't allow it for people who teach students 100% of their time.
Right.
Do you want to expand it to include those if they meet your criteria?
I think so, yeah. I think that's right. I think that's what we should allow, because not all of those people in that category are going to fit the criteria of, one, wanting to do it, and two, that they're the right people. So, you know, I'll say, just because somebody wants to do it doesn't mean we should allow them to do it. They should be vetted. But at the same time is that the mindset really needs to change on this. Is that not so much with the legislature expanding it beyond the scope that you just talked about, but a whole bunch of those people in the majority of the districts in that category that you just referenced are prohibited from doing it by the district, from the school boards, which goes to is that there needs to be a culture change within the schools. And the schools, and that's another thing, you know, what have I, you know, what has my view changed on, or what have I been awakened to in the last 7 months? Is that the schools of the state did not take school safety seriously enough up to this juncture.
Did Broward County?
No.
How did they not?
Well, let's start with the basics, okay? Is that, and let's just talk the district, and then at a macro view, and in a micro view, let's talk Stoneman Douglas. Is that there was no effective, known, trained on code red policy. So nobody at Stoneman Douglas was clear, unequivocally clear, is that if we have somebody that comes onto this campus that is a threat, is that here's who can activate the lockdown, code red, whatever you want to call it, active assailant response procedures. This is how we're going to communicate it, and this is what everybody's going to do in an effective way. They didn't have that. And in their manuals didn't even have anything in it. And at Stoneman Douglas, for the entire year preceding this event, there wasn't one code red drill. So we can build on that, and then we can talk about another thing that just is mind-boggling to me, is the lack of effective safe areas or hard corners in the classrooms. Is that it mattered. You know, this is a hard thing to say. It's a really hard thing to say, but kids were shot and killed because there was not a safe place in their classrooms. That's just a fact, you know, and it's a hard thing to say. So no, they didn't, but